Most of us believe we're hurt by others, by cold words, silence when we needed someone to speak up, or actions that made us feel unimportant. We think that if they had acted differently, if life had been less harsh, we wouldn't have suffered so much. But Carl Jung pointed out a truth that's hard to accept. You're not hurt by the outside world, but by the parts of you that are still unhealed. It's not the words that hurt you, but the fact that you still doubt your worth. It's not the rejection that breaks you, but the unconscious way you've placed your entire sense of, "Am I enough?" in someone else's gaze or reaction. And the irony is, the more you try to toughen up and feel nothing, the further you drift from yourself. Every time you suppress your emotions, act strong, or pretend you're fine, you're locking that pain deeper into your mind, where it quietly shapes how you live, how you love, and how you see yourself. The journey you're about to begin won't teach you to become cold or numb in the name of strength. It won't tell you to control your emotions, fake positivity, or force yourself to be okay. On the contrary, it begins with something harder, daring to look within, into the places you've been avoiding, understanding how your emotions work, recognizing the unconscious patterns that keep repeating, and from there, slowly reclaiming your power, not by bracing yourself, but through awareness and inner freedom. Because only when you truly understand this, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become," will nothing and no one be able to hurt you the same way again. If you're used to letting other people's emotions dictate your inner state, if you're tired of living in constant self-defense, then this video is for you. Watch it to the end, because after this, you won't see the world or yourself the same. Person understands and navigates their inner world. Inner strength doesn't come from feeling less. It comes from knowing that emotions are part of you, not enemies. Strong people don't try to control everything around them to feel safe. They go inward to understand why they're so easily shaken. And that's where they find the answer. You don't need to become stronger by being numb. You just need to understand that every emotion that rises is a map, leading you inward. Every moment of pain isn't proof of weakness, but a reminder. It's time to stop, to listen, and to change the way you face yourself. 2. The world you see is a mirror of yourself. We often believe we're seeing the world as it truly is, but the truth is, you never see the world objectively. You see it through your own lens, and that lens, the one you wear every day without even realizing, is made up of your beliefs, fears, wounds, and unhealed memories. If you've ever been abandoned, silence might feel like rejection. If you grew up in an unsafe environment, you may look at others with suspicion. If you carry the belief that you're not good enough, even harmless comments can wound you deeply. And from that place, you conclude, the world is harsh. But in truth, the world is simply reflecting something unresolved inside you. Carl Jung called this the mechanism of projection, where the mind casts its unconscious parts onto the outer world and mistakes them for reality. What you haven't accepted in yourself, you will see in others. What you haven't forgiven in yourself will make you feel judged by others. You don't live in the world as it is. You live in the world as you are. This doesn't mean that every pain you've ever felt was imagined. The world still has its share of rudeness, injustice, and indifference. But the kind of pain that takes your breath away, the helplessness of being abandoned, or the panic triggered by even the smallest change, those are signs that old wounds inside you are still alive. The good news is, you can change the way you see, not by denying what's happening, but by changing who is doing the seeing. When you begin to clear the lens within, with understanding, with self-compassion, with the courage to name your true feelings, the world outside begins to change too. Not because others suddenly become kinder, but because you're no longer seeing them through the eyes of your pain. You can't change the world, but you can always change how you look at it. And when you change that, the entire world begins to reflect a different reality, one that is softer, clearer, and more humane. 3. Emotions are teachers, not enemies. Most of us grow up with a distorted view of emotions. We're taught that crying is weakness, anger is bad, and fear is something to hide. We're encouraged to cheer up, stay strong, and don't let others know you're hurting. So instead of learning how to understand our emotions, we learn to hide them, suppress them, or judge ourselves whenever we feel something too intense. But Carl Jung revealed a deeper truth. Emotions are not enemies. They are messages from deeper layers of the mind, places we haven't yet listened to, where forgotten parts of ourselves are still trying to speak. Take sadness, for example. When sadness arises, most people's instinct is to dismiss it. It's nothing. This isn't worth being sad about. I need to be more positive. But if you truly pause and listen, sadness often carries a clear message. Something has ended. A hope didn't come true. Something that once mattered to you is leaving. And deep down, you know it's time to let go. But instead of releasing it, you hold on. And so the sadness becomes heavy, because you don't realize it's only trying to say, let go. This no longer belongs to you. A relationship that no longer nourishes you. An outdated dream. A role you've played for too long. When these things leave, they leave sadness behind. Not to hurt you, but to make space for a new version of you to emerge. Fear works the same way. Many believe fear is a sign of weakness, but fear is a flashlight. It shines directly into the dark corners where you're still holding on to false beliefs. You fear failure not because you'll truly fall apart, but because you've tied your self-worth to success. You fear rejection, not because it's dangerous, but because you've unconsciously handed others the responsibility for your self-love. A woman once said she always felt afraid to speak up in meetings, even though she knew she was capable. After doing some inner work, she realized the fear didn't come from the present. It came from childhood, when she was often criticized or humiliated for speaking up at home. Now, every time she's about to voice an opinion, the child in her rises up with the message, "If you speak, you'll be hurt." Fear doesn't come from the present moment. It comes from outdated beliefs. And your job is to face them, question them, and decide anew as the adult you are now. Then there's anger, perhaps the most misunderstood emotion of all. We're taught that anger is negative, dangerous, something to control. But Jung, along with many psychoanalysts, knew this. Anger is a protective emotion. It appears when an internal boundary has been crossed. Anger itself isn't the problem. The problem is that you've grown so used to not knowing when your boundaries are violated that anger becomes the final alarm, the last resort of your body to cry for help. Think of a mother who always puts everyone else first, who never complains, who sacrifices quietly. One day, she snapped, yelling, slamming doors, and breaking down in tears because her husband came home late. Outsiders might say she overreacted, but the truth is, her anger wasn't just about that one night. It was the breaking point after months, maybe years, of not knowing how to say no. Anger is a clear sign that you need to reset your boundaries. It doesn't need to be extinguished. It needs to be heard. In this way, emotions are like storms. They're powerful, sometimes fierce, but never permanent. The problem lies in how we respond. Most people resist the storm, trying not to feel, not to show it, not to let others know they're emotional. But you can't stop a storm by covering the sky with a tarp. All you can do is take shelter, let it pass, and listen to what it brings. Jung once said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size. What you fight doesn't disappear, it grows stronger." If you can shift your perspective, you'll see that every emotion is a patient teacher. Sadness comes to teach you how to let go. Fear shows you where you need a new belief. Anger reminds you it's time to protect yourself. And when you learn to listen to emotions, you're no longer their victim. You become the translator of your own inner life. You don't need to manage emotions by bracing yourself. You just need to learn how to talk to them. Like honest friends who are sometimes hard to deal with, but always tell the truth. Emotions don't block your growth path. They are the path. Every time you pause, take a deep breath and ask, "What is this emotion trying to tell me?" You take a step closer to self-understanding. And the strange thing is, once you truly understand yourself, the outside world loses its power to shake you like it used to. Not because the world has changed, but because you've changed how you listen within. sharp with your words, and part of you senses, I'm going too far. Usually we ignore that warning and push forward with justifications like, they hurt me first, or I can't control it anymore. But if you stop in that very moment and ask, which part of me is speaking right now? You might notice a hurt child inside who's terrified of being abandoned. You might realize the tone you're using echoes the voice of your parents from childhood. And here's the key. You're no longer caught in the role. You are present. You are observing. You are free to choose your next step. This ability to pause and see yourself in a triggered moment is the very doorway to transformation. Jung believed the unconscious will continue to run your life until you make it conscious. Which means if you never pause to examine where your reactions are coming from, you're not truly free. You're just reenacting old patterns, old wounds, old beliefs, old roles, and labeling them as personality or destiny. Through his work in analytical psychology, Jung discovered that each of us carries a shadow, a collection of traits, desires, emotions, and needs we were taught to reject, judge, or suppress while growing up. It might be the anger you weren't allowed to express, the vulnerability that got you mocked, the need for love you learned to hide. These parts don't disappear. They go underground, silently shaping your thoughts and actions, waiting to surface in moments beyond your control. And here lies both the danger and the gift. The shadow isn't just where the bad lives. It also holds your potential, your intuition, your creativity, and the raw, instinctual power you once silenced to become a more acceptable version of yourself. The more disconnected you are from your shadow, the more easily you'll be triggered by others, because the unconscious will always seek to return, often through people, situations, and conflicts that hit exactly where you haven't yet looked. So, how do you practice being the observer? First, pause. Pausing doesn't mean shutting down or forcing yourself to stop feeling. It means taking a deep breath and instead of reacting on autopilot, asking yourself, where is this emotion coming from? What part of me is speaking? Am I reacting to the present, or is the past resurfacing through this moment? Second, learn to sit with emotions without judgment. This is not easy, because most of us have been taught that emotions are either good or bad. But when you observe emotions without labeling them, you begin to see that they are simply energy moving through your nervous system, carrying information. You're no longer entangled with the emotion as if you are it. You are the one witnessing it. A woman once shared that every time someone rejected her, it felt like her whole world collapsed. In the past, she would either overcompensate to win them back or completely withdraw in silence. But after practicing the observer role, she learned to pause. In the moment of rejection, instead of reacting immediately, she asked, what part of me is hurting right now? And she realized it was the memory of a child once left alone in a dark room as punishment. The fear wasn't from the present, it was an old shadow speaking up. When you can observe in this way, you reclaim your freedom. You're no longer acting from the wound, but from awareness. You no longer need others to change, so you can be at peace, because you've developed the ability to turn inward and reshape your experience. And from this place, you're no longer a victim of life. You become the one who is living, choosing, and shaping your path. Carl Jung never said emotions are the enemy. He taught that emotions are gateways into the deeper mind, where both your pain and your power reside. The observer is the guiding light that helps you walk that path without getting lost. When you train yourself to stand still in the storm, not swept away by old patterns, that's when transformation begins, not through force, but through seeing, not through control, but through presence. You don't need to be perfect to stop getting hurt. You only need to stay with yourself long enough to remember there is always a part of you that knows the truth. And when that part is awakened, it will lead you out of every pain that once ruled your life. 5. Inner transformation equals a changed outer world. You could live your whole life afraid of rejection without ever realizing that you're the one recreating that experience day after day. You could try your hardest to avoid failure, only to find yourself trapped in the very limitations you built around yourself. Every fear left unexamined will keep repeating, not because the world is against you, but because something inside you is trying to bring it into the light. Carl Jung once said, "The unconscious will continue to direct your life until you make it conscious." That means every situation you face, every kind of person who triggers you, every pattern that repeats in your life is a mirror, reflecting parts of you that haven't yet healed, not to punish you, but to wake you up. Take, for example, someone who lives in fear of rejection. She's always trying to please everyone, always kind, always agreeable. In relationships, she gives more than she gets, endures more than she should, and rarely speaks her needs. On the surface, she's gentle and considerate, loved by many, but beneath that, there's a hollow emptiness, because everything she does isn't coming from love, it's coming from fear. Fear that others will leave if she's not good enough. Fear that honesty will drive people away. Fear that she isn't worthy of love unless she earns it. So when someone does leave or reacts negatively, her pain isn't just about that moment. It awakens her entire history of hurt. A child who once felt abandoned, who had to try hard just to be seen, is now reliving her pain through every word, every look, every relationship. The outside world is just a stage where her mind keeps reenacting the same script until she becomes conscious enough to realize, I don't need to live this story anymore. That moment is the turning point, when she begins to turn inward and ask, what am I seeking from others that I've never given myself? What belief tells me love must be earned through sacrifice? Can I choose to see myself differently? Outside world begins to shift, not instantly, but slowly. She starts setting boundaries, starts saying no, starts listening to what she needs. And strangely, those who used to take advantage of her began to drift away. The ones who stay are those who respect her. She didn't need to change anyone. She only needed to change how she showed up in the world. Or consider a man who fears failure. He has talent, passion, and dreams, but every time he starts something new, he hesitates, procrastinates, or finds a reason not to go further. He tells himself, I need to prepare more. The market isn't ready. I'm not good enough yet. But in truth, he's living under the grip of an unconscious belief that failure is shameful, that failing would diminish his worth in others' eyes. Dig deeper, and you might find a boy once criticized, compared, or punished for falling short. Now, every opportunity is also a threat, a chance to relive that old pain. The outer world isn't holding him back. The block is inside. But because he's never faced its root, even the smallest setback feels like a blow to his identity. So he avoids trying, avoids risking, When your actions change, others respond differently. When others respond differently, you have new experiences. And this chain reaction is how the world shifts, not through pressure, but through resonance with your new self. In the end, no one can make you feel small unless you still believe you are. No one can disappoint you unless you're expecting something from a place still unhealed. And no situation can break you if you no longer use it to define your worth. You don't need the world to change. You just need to change how you show up in it. And when that happens, you'll realize what once hurt you is now simply an opportunity to see yourself more clearly. 6. Individuation, returning to the truest self within you. Carl Jung called it the journey of a lifetime, the process of individuation, not about becoming the best version of yourself as many modern self-help slogans suggest, but the path of accepting the whole of who you are, both the light and the shadow, both the beautiful and the unfinished parts. It is a slow, steady, and at times lonely journey of shedding the shell of the social self and returning to your original essence, the person you were before the world told you who you should be. From the moment we are born, we carry within us collective unconscious patterns, archetypes of how to be a person, a child, a parent, a valuable individual. As we grow, we absorb the expectations of parents, schools, communities, and media. Gradually, we learn to become a version that is accepted, liked, and praised. But the price of being loved in that way is often the loss of ourselves. You learn to smile when you want to cry. You say yes when your heart wants to say no. You tell yourself to be grateful, even when you feel drained inside. You chase success, not because you truly desire it, but because you don't want to be seen as lesser. You stay in relationships that no longer nourish you, simply because you fear loneliness or being labeled a failure. Bit by bit, you play roles, act out scripts, adjust your emotions to fit the characters the world has written for you. And slowly, you lose the sense of who you are. Jung saw this clearly and offered a different path, the path of individuation. It begins when you start asking, who am I without the roles? What is real in me, untouched by the shaping hands of others? What do I feel, need, and believe at my core without the influence of external expectations? Individuation is not rebellion. It's not about rejecting society, abandoning roles, or isolating yourself to find who you are. On the contrary, it's about stepping fully into the world, embracing the roles you must play without being defined by them. You are a child, a parent, a partner, a colleague, a creator, but you also know you are not only those things. And when a role ends, you do not collapse, because you never clung to it as your core identity. One of the pivotal turning points in the individuation process is learning to set boundaries. For someone who hasn't begun this journey, boundaries can seem selfish, cold, unloving, but a person who has started to know themselves understands. Boundaries are acts of self-respect. When you say no to what doesn't align with you, you are saying yes to yourself. When you no longer feel guilty for choosing inner peace over people-pleasing, you are stepping out of the cage of the role so kind you hurt yourself. The truth is, you cannot individuate if you're still afraid of disappointing others. You cannot be your true self if you're still trading authenticity for acceptance. Jung once said, "The cost of abandoning your essence is that you'll live a life that isn't yours, and then call it fate." As you truly enter the process of individuation, you may begin to feel lonely, Not because no one is there, but because the things that once gave you a sense of belonging no longer satisfy you. Shallow conversations won't suffice. Relationships based on need rather than truth become heavy. You begin to crave real connection, where you don't have to perform, control your image, or pretend to be okay. And the strange thing is, the more honest you are with yourself, honest enough to lose someone's approval, the more you begin to meet people who truly see you. At that point, you're no longer a victim of emotion, circumstance, or personal history. You become a creator, not in the sense of controlling everything, but in knowing clearly where you're acting from, what's driving you, and having the freedom to choose differently whenever you feel off course. To create means you no longer let the past define your present value. You no longer let others define who you are. You no longer allow the voices in your head, inherited from childhood, to dictate how you live, love, or decide. Individuation has no final destination. It's an ongoing process of discovery, dismantling, acceptance, and expansion. Every time you dare to look at a part of yourself that was once judged and say, "I see you, I accept you," that's progress. Every time you choose to live in truth, even if no one understands, you mark a step toward real inner freedom. Carl Jung once said, "The goal is not perfection but wholeness, and wholeness comes only when you are willing to be fully yourself, not the best version, but the most honest one." 7. True freedom is no longer being a hostage to emotion. We often think of freedom as the absence of control, constraint, or dependence, freedom from circumstances or fathers. But there's a deeper kind of freedom, rarely talked about, freedom from your own emotions. Not numbness, not avoidance, but a state of awareness where you're no longer pulled, manipulated, or shaped by fleeting inner waves. It's the ability to feel everything without being ruled by anything. Carl Jung once said that emotions not understood will become fate. In other words, if you don't know what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, or which part of you is reacting, you'll keep repeating the same cycle, loving the wrong people, fearing the wrong things, misplacing your anger, and punishing yourself with patterns you can't even trace the origins of. And then you'll call it personality, or just how I am, or destiny. But the truth is, no one can hurt you unless, unconsciously, you've handed them that power. A comment that means nothing to one person can shatter another for days. The issue isn't the comment, it's the part inside you that hasn't healed, the part still using the outer world to validate your worth. When someone ignores you and you feel invisible, it's because there's a part of you that still doesn't believe you matter. When someone rejects you and you feel not enough, it's because a part of you is still chasing approval to feel valuable. The world out there only triggers what already exists inside, and true freedom begins the moment you realize that. Emotional freedom doesn't mean you stop having emotions. On the contrary, those who are truly free feel more deeply, more subtly, more honestly, but they're no longer trapped in their emotions. They can feel sadness without being consumed by it, feel fear and still move forward, feel anger without destroying, because they've learned to observe emotion rather than become it. They can say, "I feel angry," In that space, you find a quiet, unshakable strength, the presence to stand inside each emotion, each thought, each choice, without getting stuck in any of them. Emotional freedom is a deep inner stillness, not because you've detached from the world, but because you've stopped letting the world define you, not because you don't care anymore, but because you no longer have to control everything to feel safe. You've come to understand that no one can hurt you unless you still agree with what they say. You've come to realize that every emotion is just a guest passing through, and you are the host, calm enough to welcome, strong enough to let go, wise enough to learn. And when you reach that kind of freedom, you become untouchable, not because you're cold, but because you are whole, not because you no longer feel, but because you've learned to move through emotion rather than be drowned by it. You can stand in the middle of a conflict and remain steady. You can face rejection without closing your heart. You can live with your arms wide open because you know you are no longer a hostage of emotion. You are the author. That is true freedom, not the kind that comes from controlling circumstances, but the kind that runs deep when you no longer need things to go your way to feel secure, when you no longer fear what you feel, when you've stopped running from yourself. That's when you realize the peace you were chasing. When two souls truly meet, it is not through glances or words, but on a deeper level where the ego dissolves. That does not merely create love, it creates a reaction, and every powerful reaction leaves behind a mark of transformation. No one walks away from love the same as they entered. Love can make us happy, but it can also hurt us to the point of numbness. You once felt they were special. The connection between you two felt unbreakable. Then they withdrew. No explanation, no conflict. Just a long silence, as if you never existed. What was your first reaction? Maybe you thought, they stopped loving me. But what if they didn't withdraw because they stopped loving you, but because they loved too deeply? What if that love touched something inside them that they could not face? Carl Jung, the pioneering psychoanalyst in the exploration of the unconscious, once explained that behaviors like silence, coldness, and distance are sometimes not rejections of affection, but defense mechanisms of a soul not yet ready to confront itself. So why do people walk away when they still love? Why does a deep connection make someone afraid and disappear? In the next few minutes, you will understand the hidden psychological mechanism behind these seemingly irrational actions through the lens of Carl Jung. And perhaps you will look back on that past relationship, not with torment, but with understanding. Let us journey together to the end, because truth does not lie in words, but in what the unconscious has never named. Number 1. Jung and the unconscious, the root of irrational behavior. Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you felt as though you could see their soul, not through words, not through gestures, but through something unnameable, as if an invisible thread was vibrating inside you every time they appeared. It was no longer a surface-level attraction. It was a connection so profound that you couldn't deny it. But then, just when you thought you were getting closer, they began to pull away. Silent, avoidant. They said nothing, did nothing overtly hurtful, yet their absence became so vast it left you in a cold and hollow space. And what confused you the most wasn't their leaving, but the feeling that they still loved you, and yet still walked away. Carl Gustav Jung, who dedicated his life to exploring the shadowy depths of the human psyche, can help us make sense of this. He divided the mind into two parts: the part you know, called the conscious, and the part you cannot control, called the unconscious. The unconscious is not some mystical realm filled with strange phenomena. It is where you have hidden yourself, all the unhealed wounds, the rejections, the pain, the desires judged as wrong, the versions of yourself you once wished to become, but were forced to abandon. They are all stored there, like things you don't know where to put in a house too cramped for self-awareness. The problem is, they don't stay still. Jung believed the unconscious doesn't die, it only sleeps. And love, especially true love, has the power to wake it up. Because when you love someone, you are not just connecting with them, you are projecting the hidden parts of yourself onto them. Jung called this projection. The other person becomes a mirror. And in that mirror, you don't just see their beauty, you see yourself, both the parts you admire and the parts you avoid. What's important is, this doesn't only happen to you, it also happens to the person you love. When you love them with sincerity, with a gaze free of judgment, you unintentionally help them see themselves more clearly. But not everyone is ready to see themselves. Because sometimes, what we fear most is not others seeing through us, but seeing through ourselves. And if that person has never learned to touch their unconscious, never truly sat down to face their old wounds, they will not be able to withstand the intensity of that connection. You didn't do anything wrong. You were just real. And that realness stirred something inside them they weren't ready to face. Their unconscious begins to react like a child triggered by an old fear. It whispers, "Danger." This is the feeling we once had and once got hurt by. So they begin to build walls. They stop calling you as often. They become strangely busy. They dodge deep questions, avoid honest conversations. Slowly, they disappear. But not everyone is ready to awaken. And not all love is meant to last. Some connections exist only to awaken. So if you've ever loved someone and watched them walk away without a reason, don't rush to call it failure. Maybe you were the one who opened a door they hadn't yet dared to step through. Maybe you were the catalyst Jung spoke of. The catalyst that brings two souls together and forces transformation. They may have walked away, But that does not diminish the value of the love. Because if love makes someone confront themselves, it has already done the most sacred thing love can do. Number 2. Withdrawal behavior, a defense mechanism of the unconscious. Love, especially true love, is not always a sanctuary. Sometimes it is the very force that blows apart every wall you've built to feel safe. You may enter a relationship with full sincerity, openness, with the desire to understand and be understood. But the closer you get, the deeper you go, the more you may begin to feel something shift. They are starting to pull away. Their eyes no longer hold the same warmth. The late-night conversations fade. The effortless, "I miss you" becomes silence. And in its place grows a distance, a silence, a sense that something is closing, yet no one names it. Being withdrawn in this way leaves you confused. Your heart hangs suspended between love and fear. But on the other side, what is happening? How can someone love you deeply and then, suddenly, like a dried leaf, drift out of your arms without warning? Carl Jung, with his profound intuition into the structure of the unconscious, explained that human behavior, especially in love, is not governed entirely by logic or personal will. A large part of it comes from the unconscious, which stores memories, beliefs, and wounds we are unaware of, but live with every day. When a relationship begins to touch deeper emotional layers, when the other person feels too seen, not in their best light, but in their unhealed fractures, the unconscious starts to react. And the unconscious's first reaction is not to rush toward healing, but to defend. In love, the most common form of defense is withdrawal. You must understand this. Love, when it becomes profound, does not only awaken sweetness, it awakens old wounds long believed forgotten, memories of an absent father, a cold mother, experiences of abandonment, betrayal, rejection, the sense of not being enough, not being worthy, not being capable of being fully loved. All of these lie deep in the unconscious like traps, still armed. And when you enter someone's life with genuine affection, you have no idea you're triggering their entire inner alarm system. To them, you are not just someone they love. You become something dangerous, not because you did anything wrong, but because your love is too real. You make them feel exposed in the light, as if there is nowhere left to hide the parts they once buried. And for many, that feeling is not intimacy. It is loss of control. Truth that comes too close frightens them. Not because they don't need it, but because they are not yet strong enough to stay in it. At this point, their defense mechanism activates. The unconscious takes over their behavior to help them feel safe again, even if it means creating distance. You'll notice them start to avoid. They grow cold, or worse, act erratically, as if trying to create conflict on purpose. They may blame you, make excuses about being busy, or even suddenly deny the feelings they once had. But beneath all of these signs lies one simple truth. They are afraid, not of you, but of who they become when they are with you. In Jungian psychology, this is the manifestation of the unresolved shadow. Every person carries a shadow, the aspects of themselves they cannot accept. When that shadow is triggered by a deep relationship, people lose control of their responses. A primal fear resurfaces. I will be abandoned again. I will never be enough. I will lose my freedom. I will be hurt. And when unresolved stories from the past are awakened, people will do anything to escape, even while still loving deeply. The tragedy is that, in this state, reason cannot overcome the unconscious. Even if they want to stay, want to keep loving, their defense mechanism will make them act against that desire. The more you try to hold on, the further they retreat. The more you seek answers, the more they avoid. because any attempt to get closer is interpreted by the unconscious as a threat of further pain. And the only thing they know to do is disappear. You might ask yourself, why don't they just say it? Why not admit they are afraid? And this is the painful truth. Most of them don't even know what they're afraid of. The unconscious doesn't speak in language. It speaks in feeling. They only know that something new, in the way you love, in the way you see them, makes them feel like they're no longer themselves. And the natural reaction is to retreat to the safe zone. And you, the one left behind, will fall into a vague numbness. No goodbye, no clear reason, just an unnameable void. But if you understand how the unconscious works, you'll stop blaming yourself. Because when someone withdraws, you are not being rejected. You are simply reacting to the parts of them that are still unhealed. Jung once said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And that is what true love does. It brings the darkness into light. But not everyone is ready to live in that light. But when they get too close, you feel suffocated, because intimacy not only brings the feeling of being loved, it also brings the risk of being hurt, being absorbed, and being dependent. For many people, intimacy is a double-edged sword, both craved and feared. Carl Jung understood this struggle well. He called it the conflict between the conscious and the unconscious, where one part wants to open up, to love, to dissolve into the other like 2 drops of water, while the other fears losing control, fears dependency, fears being consumed. The conscious says, "I love you, I want to walk with you." But the unconscious whispers, "Be careful. This closeness is dangerous." Remember what happened before. For those who are unhealed, a relationship becomes unstable ground. They don't know whether to come closer or pull away. Closeness feels like a loss of freedom. Distance feels empty. To love is to risk pain. Not to love is to feel lonely. And so they become trapped in a familiar cycle. When you move closer, they retreat. When you step back, they draw near. They love you, but they can't hold you close. They need you, but they don't know how to be with you without losing themselves. This kind of back and forth is exhausting for both of you. But it is not deception. It is a sign of a psyche not yet mature in love, not immature in age, but not yet grown enough to understand that being loved does not mean losing freedom. That closeness is not annihilation, and that opening up is not weakness, but the opportunity to live authentically. It is hard to remain steady when parts of you have never been fully seen. A person who has never learned how to sit with their emotions, who still lets the past dictate the present, who has never paused to ask, "What am I afraid of?" will always be tossed about by invisible waves they cannot name. And in love, those waves are rarely gentle. Jung once emphasized, "No one becomes fully developed without going through their darkness." And love, in truth, is one of the fastest roads into that darkness, because only when we love deeply do we begin to clearly see our limits, our wounds, and the unhealed spaces within ourselves. In that way, love is not only about bonding, but it is a journey of self-recognition through the other. This is why true love never comes without a certain discomfort. It is beautiful, but not in the way a warm cup of tea is. It is beautiful like a storm, where every mask is stripped away, and you are left with no choice but to sit with your raw self. And if someone has never been ready for that, they will see love as a threat, not salvation. In the closest moments when you feel most seen, that may be the exact moment the other person feels most exposed. When you feel deeply connected, their unconscious may be sounding the alarm. Not because you did something wrong, but because you did something real. That inner conflict is not something that can be solved by love alone. Loving more, being more patient, waiting longer. These can sometimes make the other person feel even more suffocated, because what they need is not more love from you, but an honest dialogue with themselves. They need to ask, "Why am I afraid of closeness? What am I running from? What about this love throws me off balance?" And if they are not ready to enter those questions, then no relationship, no matter how beautiful, can save them from themselves. The hard part for you, the one who loves, is that it's easy to confuse their withdrawal with a rejection of you. But that isn't true. When they pull back, when they are conflicted, that is their inner battle, not a judgment of your worth. You are not the cause, you are the mirror. And if they see too much in that mirror, they will either bravely stay or step back to avoid facing it. So if you've ever loved someone who kept drifting closer then further, don't be quick to label it insincerity. Perhaps it was the most honest expression of where they were at the time. And what you can do is not try to pull them back, but to remain grounded in yourself so that if they return, it is a voluntary choice, not the result of pressure or fear of loss. In the end, true love does not come to fill a void. It comes to reveal what still needs healing. And not everyone is ready to cross that threshold with you, but that does not make your love any less valuable. On the contrary, it proves you love deeply enough to bring someone face to face with themselves. Number 4, understanding, absence, test, defense, or escape. Perhaps one of the most painful feelings in love is not rejection, but being left in silence. No goodbye, no clear reason, no door firmly closed to let you know whether to move on or wait. The other person simply disappears, or if they're still around, their presence fades so much that all you feel is a cold and growing distance. And when this happens, one question keeps echoing in your mind. Why would someone who once said they loved you, who once held you tightly, who once told you they saw a future with you, now act as if you were a stranger? Carl Jung doesn't give us a simple answer, But he helps us understand this. Human behavior, especially in love, is rarely fully conscious. Behind such absence may lie a series of deeper motives, and we'll walk through each possible explanation. 1. The unspoken test. When absence is a trial. Not everyone enters love with full trust. Some, when they love, don't step forward wholeheartedly, but instead place one foot ahead while the other stays. Someone new, he's still kind, still present, still caring, but sometimes he suddenly pulls away, shuts down, not out of anger, but because, I need to know if you'll be patient with me. I need to see if I show my weakness. Will you stay or turn away like she did? Sadly, this kind of testing, though rooted in wounds, never brings true healing. It creates a game where the only winner is the person still in pain. But in love, winning is not about getting the other to chase you. It's about feeling safe enough not to run or set traps at all. The person being tested begins to feel confused. They don't know what they did wrong. They don't understand why the relationship is growing cold without any conflict. They may start to doubt themselves. Did I do something wrong? Am I not enough? Do I not care enough? Gradually, they feel like they're walking on cracked ground, unsure when it might collapse beneath them. The saddest part is this. Both people end up hurt without knowing why. The tester feels unloved. The one being tested feels they can never get it right. The relationship becomes a tense cycle. One person withdraws, the other chases. The withdrawer feels reassured by the attention, then pulls back again to test one more time. And slowly, love turns into exhaustion. You may have been part of this dynamic, either as the tester or the tested. Maybe you once waited for someone to text back, then deliberately didn't message first because you thought, if they care, they'll message me. Maybe you stayed silent for a few days, just to see if they'd check in, and you felt disappointed when they didn't, concluding, they must not love me enough. But is that the truth? Or are both people simply scared, using tactics instead of honesty? Jung once said, where love rules, there is no will to power. And that's what mature love requires. A voluntary presence, not strategic. Love isn't about who is more patient, who retreats more slowly, who misses more. Love is when neither needs to measure who needs who more, because both feel safe enough not to measure at all. So if you realize you're the one doing the testing, be honest with yourself. What am I afraid of? Were you abandoned before? Did you once love the wrong person? Do you still doubt your worth, needing someone else to prove long ago, sometimes as early as childhood? This scenario is far more common than most people think. The person isn't running from you. They're running from their own emotions. Because for them, love isn't simply joy. It's dangerous terrain. It's a place where suppressed feelings rise, where long-buried memories in the unconscious begin to speak. Imagine someone raised in an environment where emotions were treated as secondary, where sadness, fear, loneliness, and anger were considered annoying or weak. They were taught that expressing feelings was wrong, that crying was a failure, that pain should be hidden, endured in silence, and forgotten. And so they learned one thing. To survive, they had to ignore their own emotions. But love doesn't allow that. When someone truly matters to you, you can no longer suppress how you feel. You start feeling jealous, not out of mistrust, but out of fear of losing something precious. You feel insecure, not from a lack of confidence, but because your heart is genuinely invested. You feel anxious, moved, vulnerable, and those are emotions you were never taught how to handle. And if you don't know how to stay with those emotions, your first instinct will be to avoid them. They don't cause a scene, they don't yell, don't argue, but they withdraw in a way that you can feel in your bones, a kind of absence that can't be named. They stop initiating. Their messages become sparse. They say they're busy, that they need space, that they have a lot on their mind. They're physically present, but emotionally, a wall has gone up. Someone who was once so close now feels like they're standing at the edge. And the cruel truth is, they might still love you, but they don't know how to love without fear. They were never taught how to live with emotion, so when love awakens those feelings, they panic. They feel weak, and instead of sharing that with you, for fear of being judged, out of shame, or because they don't understand it themselves, they disappear, to sort it out alone, or to avoid it completely. Think of the man who once heard his father say, "Men don't cry." That man may grow up highly capable, controlling his schedule, his tasks, and his logic. But in a real relationship, where the woman beside him brings out his softness, what happens? He becomes confused. He feels like he's The emotionally mature don't need to run from their feelings. They've learned how to stay, even if sometimes they stay with trembling hands. 3. Inner escape. When love becomes a threat. Some withdrawals do not begin with calculation, with intent, or with any desire to control or test anyone. These are retreats that even the one pulling away cannot fully explain. They had no plan to disappear from your life, no desire to hurt you. But one day they begin to fade like morning mist under the sun. They stop showing up, stop sharing, stop holding the connection, and worse, they don't even know exactly why. This is a particularly difficult kind of escape to recognize and the hardest to heal, because it offers no clear reason to hold on to, no explanation to dissect, no fixable problem. It's just a feeling. I don't feel like myself in this relationship. And that feeling alone is strong enough to make someone walk away, even if they still love you. You may have heard someone say, "I feel suffocated, but I don't know why. I feel like something's off, but I can't explain it. I don't feel happy like before, even though you haven't done anything wrong." These words can drive you mad. You will ask yourself, how can you love me and then suddenly feel suffocated? What did I do? I wasn't controlling. I just loved. But what you need to understand is, the problem isn't your behavior. It's what you've unintentionally awakened inside them. Carl Jung called this the moment when the unconscious takes over, when the conscious mind, the rational, aware, right or wrong part, can no longer regulate behavior. Old patterns, unhealed wounds, and buried fears start to run on autopilot like a defense system long pre-programmed. Their actions are no longer driven by logic or current desires, but by deeply embedded scripts, often formed in childhood. For example, someone may have grown up with the experience that deep attachment always leads to pain. Their parents loved each other passionately, but ended in bitterness. Or they watched their mother suffer because she loved too much, sacrificed too much, and received too little. From early on, they internalized a silent lesson. Don't let anyone get too close. Closeness is pain. Love is loss. These lessons don't live in the conscious mind. They're not spoken, but they are imprinted as core beliefs that shape their entire emotional approach. When you enter their life with sincere, steady, and wholehearted love, they begin to feel things they cannot name: anxiety, unease, fear, pressure. Not because you're asking too much, but because your love is too real. Your love becomes a mirror, reflecting the fears they've buried. They feel themselves changing, and for them, change has always meant losing control. The future starts to look too uncertain. They no longer feel in charge of themselves, and that alone is enough to send them into panic. This fear doesn't have a name, but it is very real. And to cope, they do the only thing they know how. They pull away. They don't retreat because they've stopped loving you. They retreat because they don't understand what's happening inside themselves, and that uncertainty is terrifying. If you ask them why, they won't have an answer. Because this isn't about compatible or not, bored or not, right person, wrong time. This is an inner escape, a way to flee from overwhelming emotions, a way to restore a self that feels shaken. A man might feel weakened in your presence, not because you diminish him, but because you love him in a way that makes him face the fragility within himself. A woman might feel like she's losing herself in loving you because you awaken emotions she was taught to suppress. In both cases, love becomes a threat to the old self, an identity not built on truth, but on defense. The worst part is, when they leave, they don't explain, because they have no specific reason. And that's what hurts you most. You don't know what went wrong, what to fix, or whether to wait or let go. They leave you with a void no answer can fill, and that is the cruelest part of an absence driven by inner escape. It leaves no trace, no closure, yet the wound is entirely real. You cannot help someone understand what they're not yet ready to hear. You cannot force them to heal when they don't believe they're wounded. You cannot pull them back into a love they never truly let themselves stay in. And the heartbreaking part is, you truly love them. And they love you too. But between those two loves stands a walled, unnamed fear. Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." But not everyone is ready to enter that darkness, not for themselves, and not for the one they love. And if someone has not yet found enough peace within to recognize what's making them run, then no love, however deep, can make them stay. Carl Jung once said that true love does not bind. It helps you become yourself. It is not something to possess, control, or hold tight. It is an inner journey where both people, if they are ready, grow together, step by step. And sometimes, for growth to happen, one person has to walk away. They don't leave because they stopped loving you, but because love has touched a part of them they are not yet strong enough to face. Maybe they need time to look inward, to confront the fears and shadows that your presence unknowingly stirred to life. And if they do return, it won't just be because they still love you, but because they are finally ready to love.